Good morning, everyone. The time's now 10:01. I'm Paulo Robertson, Chair of the Social Equity Council, and at this time, I'd like to call our meeting to order and welcome CTM, the public, our Social Equity Council members, and all our state agencies, licensees, applicants, and all those that support the SEC. We continue to work on building and supporting those communities that have been impacted by the war on drugs and look toward pursuing reinvestment to create generational wealth for the future. At this time, I'd like to take a moment to officially welcome Shirley Skyers-Thomas as our designated representative from the Department of Consumer Protection. And Shirley, unless you have something to add or would like to say a few words.
No, I don't, but just good morning and thank you for having me on the council. Glad to be a part of the work.
Great. At this time, then let's begin our roll call by attendance. Andrea Comer.
Present.
Corey Betts.
Present.
Avery Gaddis.
Here.
Sabera Gordon.
Here.
Thank you. Michael Jefferson.
Here.
Ojala Naeem. Mark Pelka.
Present.
Thank you. Shirley Skyers-Thomas.
Here.
Kevin Walton.
Present.
Thank you. Edwin Shirley.
Present.
Kelly Marie Valeris.
Present.
Melvin Medina. Andrea Hawkins.
Present.
Thank you. At this time, where we look to, may I have a motion to approve and accept the minutes from September 11th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries and the minutes have been approved and accepted. At this time, we're going to enter executive session to discuss pending litigation involving the council. May I have a motion to enter executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed or abstentions? All right, thank you. Members have received a Teams link for the executive session, and the members have the option of leaving this Zoom meeting and logging back in after the executive session, or muting this Zoom meeting and opening the link for Teams. For the members of the public, we will return shortly, and we thank you for your patience, and we'll talk with you then. Thank you. Good afternoon, all. We've returned from executive session, and once again, I'll take attendance to ensure that we have a quorum. Andrea Comer.
Present.
Corey Betts.
Here.
Avery Gaddis.
Here.
Sabera Gordon.
Here.
Michael Jefferson.
Here.
Thank you. Ojala Naeem.
Present.
Thank you. Mark Pelka. Thank you. Shirley Skyers-Thomas.
Present.
Kevin Walton. Ed Shirley. Kelly Marie Valeris.
Present.
Thank you. Melvin Medina. Andrea Hawkins.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum, and at this point, we will move to the Executive Director's report. Executive Director Clay. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much. Jennifer, can you put up the report? Hope everyone is well, enjoying the beautiful weather the next couple of days. Got it, Jennifer? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So next slide, please. So the report will be staff updates, program updates, committee updates, what's new, and our October goals. So this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we will be interviewing administrative assistants, and we will be posting a new position for staff attorney, for another staff attorney for the council. As far as our program updates, the Canna Business Revolving Loan Fund, we launched that program on October 9th. We are receiving applications for the loan fund and beginning to review them and working very closely with the Department of Economic and Community Development. Right now, we are accepting applications from social equity lottery approved applicants, and then about December 1st, we will be accepting applications from the rest of the licensed categories. Next slide, Jen. Next one. Okay. Update on the grant pilot program. So Waterbury has approved 31 applications for their total $900,000. They received $1 million, but they received 10% of that as administrative for administrative costs. In Bridgeport, they are currently reviewing the 69 applications that they received. We expect them to make their decisions about October 13th, on or before October 13th. In New London, Wyndham, Norwich area, southeastern Connecticut, they had 2 rounds of awards. In their first round, they awarded 8 grants totaling $530,000. And then in round 2, which they're reviewing right now, they have another 13 applications that they're reviewing. That total is $831,509, and their balance is $370,000. In Hartford, the Hispanic Federation is reviewing 31 applications. We expect them to finish their review by the end of this week and announce their awards to us. New Haven, the same thing, and Stamford, they are all in the process of doing their community reviews, volunteers reviewing the applications, and we expect them to finish those reviews by the end of next week. I don't know if anyone has any questions. This is just on the pilot program. I do have an update on the reinvestment plan on the next slide, but if anybody has any questions on the allocation of funds through the pilot, I can answer those.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Kevin Wilson. I do have a question for the executive director.
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Jenny Ray. So I just had a question in terms of what we are requesting as a council from the grant makers. Are we requesting, and I'm suggesting it also, a list of all applicants as well as a list of those that they are sending forward?
So the process is when all of the application, when the application period ended, the grant maker sent us the full list of applications that are requests, so applications for request of funds. That list with a brief description, how much money they're looking for, what they plan to use for the money, were put in a grant report. That report was sent to all members of the council. The council had about 3 days to review that and share any concerns that they had with that list. And then after that, I then reviewed the list myself and then returned the list to the grant makers so that they could go through, provided any comments, any common themes that we saw, any concerns that we had, and then they went through their community review process. Once the community review process has ended, they select the grants that they're going to award. They then send us back the list of the grantees, and we'll be getting those. We haven't received any of the lists back yet, but we will be sending the final list to the council once we have them.
So then may I rephrase the question? So the information that we received and that I looked at is just all the total number of people who applied?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next slide, Jennifer, please. So we are in the process, the staff is in the process of preparing the reinvestment plan. So I have provided you with our time. This is kind of large picture. There's a lot of other things that go in the middle of some of these dates, but you'll see here, and I sent the report out. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I can answer any questions on the timeline for you if you would like, but we are in the process right now. all contracts for the community conversations have been approved, and we are working very closely with the 3 trusted messengers to get those conversations going very, very soon. Basically, what they have to do is a rescheduling of the conversations they had scheduled when we had hoped that the contracts would be approved. And then through December, because I don't know if you want me to go over it, I will, but I can answer questions if you see the timeline. So I see that Councilmember Naeem.
Yes, thank you so much. So looking at this plan, this is based on we're going to use the same reinvestment strategy, which is disbursement through grant makers. And I'm not sure that we as a council or as a reinvestment committee have actually decided that that's the way to go. Our conversations in the last 2 meetings indicated that we want to have the community conversations. We want to understand what's coming out of those, and then decide, as you know, after seeing sort of what happens with this previous fiscal year's disbursement through grant makers, have a discussion as a committee and then council on, do we want to use the same process, or do we believe there is an opportunity where we can make a bigger impact with greater dollars in a different approach? So I just want to call that out, because I think this timeline is based on, you know, reinvestment funds being dispersed to grant makers, and I do not feel comfortable saying that that is 100% the direction we're going to go in.
So I call to your attention. Oh, sorry. I call to your attention.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I called to your attention, December 20th is the date that this is not cast in stone. We will be bringing proposals. So based on our experience with the grant making, third-party grant making partners right now, and our updating of our reinvestment plan. So all of the work that we're doing now will come back as a proposal or a draft to the Reinvestment Workforce Committee December 20th for your comments, suggestions, approvals. There's many, many questions that we have and for the direction that the council wants to go in, but that's the day that we'll be having those discussions with you. So these are not cast in stone. These are just draft goals and proposal ideas and dates.
I would recommend maybe putting in a little bit more time for review, edits, and discussion within that sort of December to February timeframe before we vote on it. I'm not sure if there is a drop dead date that this needs to get to OPM and legislative committees by. I don't know if February 6th has to be that date or if we have flexibility, but it would be helpful to have a few more touch points.
This is just something to work with, just to start the conversation. Any of these dates can be changed. I just wanted to plan out if we plan to spend all of our money that we have now by June, by the end of the fiscal year. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of what those dates look like. So this is all open for discussion. Yes.
Great. Can we go to Councilman Jefferson? You're on mute, Councilman Jefferson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I recognize Councilwoman Naeem's concerns, I like the timeline, quite frankly, and I am concerned about missing that deadline, the June end of the year deadline. I do not want to see this money rolled over back into a fund that we no longer control. This money is for our sole discretionary use. We have control over this money to reinvest in our communities. I just get sick and tired of us reinventing the wheel. We have a plan. That's why we had a pilot program. Pilot programs are practice program in my estimate. And all we have to do is review that pilot program. Up to this point, I haven't heard any complaints about it. It's working well. If it continues to work well, we simply use the same grant makers and we move forward and get this money back into the hands of our community, the communities that were disproportionately impacted by the state's war on our communities. So I don't want to sit around and tinker with things that don't need to be tinkered with. Let's just get this thing done. I don't want to waste time. Next thing you know, we're in May and we still haven't had a plan. And then it's a plan, then it's a plan, and then it's help build capacity. All this is a delay tactic. I don't want to be part of any delay tactic. I'm just putting it on the record. We want to get this money back to our communities. Plain and simple. And we don't need to reinvent the wheel to do it. I love your plan, Jenny. Keep it up. We'll continue to discuss and debate, but we have a timeline here, and I think we need to follow that timeline.
Chairman Robertson, point of
Thank
order, if I may, just to respond to that. I do want to
Yes.
clarify that I have heard concerns in the approach that we have used, and that's why I want to make sure we have the space and ability to discuss it. I don't think this is a forum to necessarily do that, but again, that's why I believe it's important to make sure that the reinvestment and workforce committee have the ability to engage and have those conversations. So I know you mentioned you haven't heard any feedback. As chair of the committee, I have heard feedback from all across the board in terms of what's worked well and what's been challenging, and what might help for us to do differently. So want to make sure that we have those conversations and give those concerns, the appropriate due diligence before committing to setting anything in stone for how we're going to disperse next year. Thank you.
Great.
Chair, may I respond? Yeah,
Yes.
I'm fine with all of that, but I don't want a delay. We simply sit around and have these discussions. They're ongoing until the point where we get to that point where we miss our deadlines, and then this money rolls over. Then what do we say to the community? Oh, sorry, we were in the midst of a discussion to figure out how we reinvent this wheel. No, let's at least establish a timeline when the debate is cut off and we're ready to do just what the executive director has laid out on this time frame. I don't think that debate should go any further than February. It should not go. What are we talking about? What are we actually talking about? Getting a new grant maker? And if we have to get a new grant maker, for example, for Hartford or New Haven or Bridgeville, let's do that. But let's not punish the other communities where we're not hearing any complaints or concerns. Why should we do that? Why should we punish other communities? Let's move forward on this. The people expect us. This is reinvestment. They expect us to do our due diligence to get the money back in their hands. And I think we owe the communities that. And that's where I stand. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Jefferson and Councilwoman Naeem. I believe Councilwoman Comer had her hand up as well.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. And I'll be quick. I think, and I hear both views. I think what I'm hoping for is that, we have a process that is actually inclusive of community voice, so that we are hearing from them, which I don't know that we necessarily had that night. I appreciate Executive Director Clay's thinking about the community conversation so that we can get that feedback. I guess my only concern and is trying to determine whether or not we are sort of taking into account other funds that are available, whether it's urban grant, whether it's community investment fund, and keeping a mind towards not replicating or duplicating or being redundant in terms of providing funding. I see this as an opportunity for us to really fill in some gaps where where resources are not available in those communities. And I would hope that we would be mindful of achieving that goal, as opposed to just adding on to existing entities that are already receiving dollars. So those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Comer. We'll go with Councilwoman Gordon.
Good morning, everyone. So a couple of things. I think the process that we came up with before, we want to think about an alternative process, I feel like if we think that there is a process that the state should manage and get the money out and not use the fiduciaries, I would love to see a plan from the executive director that include like tells us how the state can manage it. Because to Councilman Jefferson's point, if we have a system that's working, that's getting money into the community, if there's a problem with the system, I don't know, but we need to know what the alternative is, because if there is no strong alternative, I'm gonna say we just continue to use the system that we have right now, barring any fiduciary issues or anything like that. I think if there are complaints that are valid, I think we have to explore them. But I also think like if there's an alternative that we need to be thinking about, for example, should it be run through DECD? That plan needs to be built and given to us within a timely manner, so we're not messing with the timeline. So if no one has an alternative plan, I'm going to err on the side of we know what works. We did it this last time. We're going to continue to use the fiduciaries and we're going to get the money into the community. That's like my initial thought, that I don't want to mess with that unless we have something that is a better plan that's vetted. I would like to know, so I got the plan from the executive director. I'd love to figure out what process we want to use to provide feedback. I have a ton of thoughts. I think it's really high level. I think we just need to get a little bit more detailed, none of which I think changes the direction of what the plans are, but can we have a clear, how do you want SEC members to review the plan? How do you want, like, what's the process? I feel like a lot of times I get lost and never know what the next steps are. So I'm not sure what the direct feedback on that plan is. And my other thing is, it sounds like we have made some movement on the community conversations, which will get them done in a timely manner. Those reports, I think, will be very, very necessary if we are able to execute them in figuring out what the plan is moving forward. I think I'm just nervous about timing, to Councilman Jefferson's point. I really want us to hear from the community conversations, but I do not want it to delay us getting the resources out to the community. So if we have another plan, we have to have it built before December. Like we cannot be in January saying the way that it worked right now didn't work. We need to come up with a new plan. So I would say SEC staff, if there is a way to build an alternative, it should be built now. Because I don't want to hear next year about trying to create something else. Like, these are state resources. If we don't want to give the 10% pass through, is there a mechanism to do so that will be that we can equitably disperse the funds without having the grantees needing to jump through 10,000 hoops, which was the original concern. And I'm not sure that exists. So those are just my points. The answer about the updates of the plan doesn't need to be answered right now, but I need to know when I need to have my edits and drafts back, and to who, and then what's next. That'll be really helpful for me.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gordon. I also would like to acknowledge that I think it is going to be key to look at some of the alternate means like CAF fund, and again, to be aware of the other funds that are in the marketplace in terms of creating a balance and not creating a duplicative effort, and really looking at how we disperse the funds. Let me go to Councilwoman Medina.
Good morning, everyone. Through the chair, I echo the sentiments of Councilman Jefferson, Councilman Gordon, Councilwoman Homer. I think what I want to lift up is the concern I have about moving to a more state centralized version. Is that I think we learned the lesson that likely means that there is groups who cannot access the funding that only perpetuate what is the kind of inequities that we know exist, and that I think we are intending to undo. So I want to embrace the mindset of an iterative process, and what that I think means is that there are things that are likely working in this existing process, and it may require some thoughtfulness about the consolidation of grant partners, so that we have bigger buckets to a smaller subset of folks who are doing the administration. That may move things quicker. I'm also interested if we're doing surveys to having the various foundations and groups do surveys for the applicants so that we can get real-time feedback about what did and didn't work this cycle, and just wanted to name that. I agree that I'm very worried about shifting timelines and centering debates around work product development, because what that means is that we would be waiting until we get our kind of report from the executive director to then entertain and debate whether it's the right approach, and then giving feedback to be like, okay, no, try a different approach. I just don't think that is an effective model. And I do think it's incumbent on the reinvestment committee if you want to go in a different direction. I do think you have the responsibility to outline what that different direction is, and as a council member, I would appreciate understanding what are the pros and cons and who is likely to be able and not able to access funding given those decision points, because I think that is the thing that I'm most interested in. So just want to name that when I saw the timeline, I think it's aggressive. I think that's right. And I think that we have to be thoughtful here about the work that we're asking SEC staff to be doing, that are about answering questions that we have, that we may need to be doing that work in advance so that we don't slow things down, because ultimately that is what it will result in. Just wanted to lift that up.
Thank you, Councilman Medina. Councilman Pelka.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, 3 things I wanted to encourage we include in our ongoing reinvestment planning efforts. First, if we could budget funding for assessment of the funding as provided. The fiduciaries will cover grant administration components, entities receiving the funds, the purpose, the various reporting that will come back. It'd be helpful, I think, for the SEC to have a standalone report covering an overarching description of the reinvestments made in the pilot and the full reinvestment, plus some level of assessment and analysis. It'll help, I think, with questions that may come in as this rolls out, and allow the council, I keep calling the commission, the council to point to for the impact of the work. Second, I think we should include in grant announcements the fact that the full reinvestment is based on funds made available by the substantial upfront funding made available by the opening of the market, and a lack of understandable certainty about ongoing funding. I think that will help the subrecipients prioritize and focus the funding they apply for, and help them to prepare their budgets longer term. And I would agree with prior recommendations made about leveraging, where possible, existing funding infrastructure from the federal, from the state, from local governments, just again to help with the durability and sustainability of these reinvestments. Maybe that could be some encouragement or other language delivered to the fiduciaries and to the subrecipients about linking their projects to sustainable funding, perhaps as a way of the council recognizing the desire for sustainability and funding for these programs doing critical work in the DIAs. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilwoman Pelka. I'm going to go to Councilwoman Gordon again, and then to Councilwoman Naeem.
I'm sorry, I
Gordon.
had my hand. I apologize. I didn't have anything.
Okay, Councilwoman Naeem.
Thank you so much. I just want to reiterate, because I think there was maybe some unclarity caused by Councilman Jefferson's strong words, and I'm not sure if the point of delays and debates causing delays were pointed at me, but I just want to clarify, I'm not saying we need to extend this timeline out or go beyond the February date of getting this to OPM. I still stand by, we need to make sure we are giving more time and touch points as a council and as committees to these staff, so that once we learn from what we've done and once the grant making period is completed for what we've already done, as well as the community conversations that we are having, we can come together and help support and guide where we think we might need to make changes and how we can address them, and make sure that there's enough timeline and space for the director and the staff to be able to get the work done. That last year when we were going through this process, we had the same timeline. We still got further pushed down because we did not feel that the original plan that was submitted was strong enough and reflected on the things that we were hearing. So we had to put in changes. Again, knowing that's what's happened before, I want to make sure we are not setting our staff up for failure, and that we're aware that in December, which is a busy month with holidays, right? We're looking at December 20th for a reinvestment workforce committee check-in. I can almost guarantee you there's going to be half the committee not there on vacation. So I want the council and committees to be aware that with this timeline, I will expect that we have more frequent check-ins and ability to have the discussion on the concerns that are popping up and how we might want to address the output of the community conversations that we should have by the end of November. Just want to clarify that and make sure I'm not trying to delay this. Do not want to have money being moved around or being taken away from us. Not that I'm 100% clear on if that is the case, but regardless of all of that, just want to make sure everyone's clear on my point on this and stance on this as chair of reinvestment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Naeem, for that clarification. I want to go to Councilman Jefferson. You're on mute, Councilman Jefferson.
Allow me to clarify, and I apologize, Councilwoman Naeem, if I miscommunicated my point. It was directed at the entire council, this whole matter of delay, because I am concerned about delay. This time last year, I want to remind folks, we voted on a recommended budget where we asked for $16 million for this fiscal year and $21 million for the next fiscal year. We came back months later. We rescinded that plan. It was a vote. It was a very close vote to rescind that plan. And then we adopted a plan where our revenues would come from projected tax revenues from the cannabis sales, which amounted to $5.2 million for this fiscal year. And then the following fiscal year went from 21 down to 10 based on projected tax revenues. We now sit on a fund, an account, I don't want to say fund yet because it hasn't been moved into the fund, with $31 million for our sole discretionary use. We have control over that. And we have to take advantage of it. We have to get this money back into the hands of our community. Let's be clear. Our community was devastated by the war on drugs. Devastated. Now, the plan we have, what we did was we clipped off some of the other aspects that the executive director had added to the plan. We focused on re-entry and we focused on youth. So some of the other items were dismissed. But that can be reincorporated, and yes, we can listen to the what outreach has to say. That's why we paid these folks to do some outreach, and we can listen to what they have to say. Incorporate that. We have our grant makers. If a couple of grant makers aren't working out, fine. We find another grant maker. But whatever we have to do, let's not delay this process. I'm going to say it over and over and over again through you, Mr. Chair. I was going to wait to the good of the order, but this is the fine time to say it right now. We cannot simply delay. Let's get this money back into the hands of our people in the communities. They need it, and they know how to stretch a dollar, by the way. When their husbands and brothers and folks were being locked up, our sisters in those communities raising those families, they knew how to stretch a dollar. So we don't have to sit around here talking about capacity, and we want to worry about capacity. We find an entity in the community that can teach capacity building. That's not our mission. Our mission is to get this money back into the hands of the community. And that's what we need to do. And make sure that there's equity in the adult cannabis business. That's our mission. And I'm committed to that mission. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Jefferson. I will now go to Councilman Gaddis and then Councilman Pelka.
Thank you for the indulgence, Mr. Chairman. Listen, this is a very passionate subject, but I do feel at this time it's hijacking the agenda. I would suggest that the good chairwoman of the Reinvestment Committee maybe convene a meeting specifically about this topic so that more thoughtful dialogue could be had. I really am having a hard time sitting here having this go on and on and on. It's just the executive director's report. There's nothing heavy here, and I don't want to boil the ocean today. So I really think we need to move on. I would like to move on.
Thank you, Councilman Gaddis. Councilman Pelka.
Apologies, sir. That was a leadership legacy hand. It's been lowered. My mistake. Sorry, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. With that said, I will return back to the executive director. I do see Councilman Jefferson. Oh, okay. I will refer back to the executive director.
Okay. Well, thank you. And as I mentioned when I put this slide up, again, these are very high level. There's many other dates, there's many other touch points within this. I only use the regularly scheduled meeting dates in this outline. So we do have some plans, and the issues that folks have brought up are the concerns, making sure that we're looking at leveraging other programs that are out there. We are also looking at that. And I can send an even more detailed plan. I did not put the detailed plan in the report, but I can share that with you. And again, these are some points of discussion for the council and the committees to take under consideration. So the next slide for the community conversations. Again, we are meeting right now. The trusted messengers for the community conversations are revising their schedules as their contracts were approved on Wednesday, September 27th. So now they're reconvening their teams. Now that we officially have them under contract, they're reconvening their teams and they're rescheduling the conversations. In the meantime, we do have an ongoing community survey, and this survey will also be used during the community conversation. And our next slide for October goals will be to complete the community conversations, continue with our community survey, onboard our new staff, and present updated criteria to the social equity criteria, some of the things we discussed this morning, to the Policy and Governance Committee. And we'll also be talking more with the Reinvestment and Workforce Committee on the plan that we're working on now. A reminder of committee meetings. Outreach Committee meets the 13th of October, Reinvestment the 18th, Policy and Governance the 19th, Finance on the 13th. Just want to remind you that our regularly scheduled November 7th meeting, which would be the first Tuesday, we have changed that meeting to November 8th due to the election. And then our meeting on December 5th is planned right now for the first Tuesday. And then on our what's new, our website is live. Our website is new. I encourage you all to click on the link that's in the report and take a look at it. We had very little control over the format of the website. It's a statewide format for all agencies, councils, commissions. However, we do have control over the content that goes in it. So please take a look at our new website, and also please take a look at our Facebook page. If you're not following us on Facebook, please do so. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the executive director? Councilwoman Comer.
Not a question, just I wanted to thank Director Clay and her team for the work that's been done thus far, as well as the outline of the plan. And I know there was a lot of conversation about sort of the how, and I think that's just a demonstration of everybody's commitment to making sure that this work is done with fidelity. But I did just want to acknowledge the efforts that you put in the work, whether it's from the website to the plan to just making sure that the train continues to move. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the acknowledgement, and thank you to my staff.
Thank you, Councilwoman Comer. Any other questions or comments? All right, with that said, we have a motion to approve the resolution proposed by the executive director as presented. Can I have a second? That's from Ed Shirley. May I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
I'm sorry.
Can you just restate the resolution?
Restate the resolution? Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What the resolution is. Thank you.
Director Clay, can we go back, Director Clay?
It's not to me, it's you. They're asking you to restate the resolution to accept my report.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that was for the resolution for the report.
Do we need to? I don't think we do
that. We don't normally vote on my report.
Okay, fine. Then shall we move forward with the committee recommendations? Are there any committee recommendations?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, just a statement that the Finance Committee has not met, but will be meeting this month, really to just get a clearer understanding of the numbers with regard to what's available for community reinvestment. And I'm and we can have a further discussion on this when we meet, but I think my concern, and I may have stated this before, is, if we look at the funding that came through for ARPA, right? And then there was all of these dollars that went into the community, and now, folks are suffering as a result of that money now no longer being available. So my hope is that as we put this money out into the community, we are doing so in a way that is mindful, so that we don't leave them in a lurch once those funds run out, so that we are just being purposeful and strategic when we put those dollars out into the community. And that is, I absolutely understand Councilman Jefferson's concern and passion and wanting to make sure that those dollars are out there. I just don't want to leave communities worse off when we, if we just put a flood of money into those communities and then it's gone. So I definitely understand the sense of urgency and agree with it. I just don't want to do more harm than good. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Comer. Councilwoman Valeris.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to give you all a quick update on the Workforce Development Coordinator. We have chosen a candidate and the process is being moved forward in the HR department. So by this time, our next committee meeting, we should be able to make an announcement, hopefully, as to our new workforce coordinator. And I thank you all for your patience. It's been a very long process, whittling down to one person out of 400. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Councilwoman Valeris. Councilwoman Naeem.
Thank you so much. So the Reinvestment and Workforce Committee met on September 20th, and in a heated attempt to get some more clarity, we still had outstanding questions. We had requested that the executive director, in partnership with DECD and OPM, get in writing clarity that we were looking for on, again, very clear on the differences between the fund and the account, what they are for, what can be accessed when funds need to be spent by, what happens when they are not spent. And the last piece of it was the timeline, which the executive director shared out today. So just wondering if we have gotten anything from OPM in terms of written clarity on those aspects, or if there's any holdups or delays on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, right after the meeting was over, OPM did forward us information on all of those questions that we had and provided clarity, and that email was forwarded out to the council. I believe I feel like I have a clear understanding of the timeline and the frame and the amount of funds that are available, and the council will have to do a report for how we want to spend it, but I feel comfortable that I understand the process at this point.
Thank you, Director Clay. Councilwoman Naeem, is there anything additional?
No, that's it.
I can resend that email as well if you'd like, Councilwoman Naeem.
No, I have it, and I'm hoping the rest of the council members have read it. I think, again, I keep hearing questions during reinvestment committee meetings around the differences between the two accounts, and I'm not sure this fully spelled it out, but if everyone feels comfortable with it, I'm okay with that to move forward.
Yeah, I can have any, if anyone has any additional questions of their own, I am happy to have a conversation with you. And also, if you are hearing any feedback from the pilot program, please let me know what the feedback is if you're getting it, because I send out the grant reports to the council. I did not hear any feedback from anyone or any concerns, and that will help us as we are putting the new plan or the new plan process together. That will be very, very helpful to us to know what you're hearing versus what we've heard. And we have heard some questions and some concerns, and we're addressing those.
Thank you, Executive Director. Councilman Shirley.
Just to say that the policy committee met on the 17th to review the legislative recommendations that were assembled by Christina Diamond and to be presented to OTG, and I think, is it OPM? And we, once we get those back, then we will be presenting it to the full council.
Thank you, Councilman Sherman. Any other comments or committee contributions? Thank you all. For that, let's move to the good of the order. If there's any new business updates and or information.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no further business, I move to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
A discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Thank you all, and thank you for joining us today. Hopefully, again, we continue to move this forward and continue to work on reinvestment committee. I thank you all council members for the time and commitment that you've given to the Social Equity Council. And thank you for the public and CTN for supporting us and to keeping an eye on the work that we do. Thank you all and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.